Hey, welcome to The Explainer. We're all about taking tricky subjects and breaking them down into something you can actually use.
Okay, let's kick things off with a pretty shocking quote from SecFi. I mean, think about this. Billions of dollars in stock options are just abandoned, left behind every single year. That's a mind-boggling amount of potential wealth that people just like you are walking away from.
So the big question is, how do you make sure you're not one of them? Well, that's exactly what we're going to cover. We're going to walk through the entire life cycle of your stock options, right from day one when you get them, all the way to cashing out. The goal here is to get you feeling confident and ready to make some smart decisions.
All right, first stop on our journey, the grant. This is where it all begins. You can kind of think of it like getting a special coupon, one that lets you buy company shares at a locked-in, discounted price down the road. But, as you'll see, it's a little more complicated than just a simple coupon.
So here's the official definition. It's the right, but not the obligation, to buy shares at a fixed price, called the strike price. That not the obligation part is key. But look, what you're really getting isn't just a number on a page. It's a legal contract, and it is packed with details you absolutely need to get your head around from the very beginning.
And speaking of details, here are the big ones you need to hunt down in your paperwork. Seriously, these are the questions to ask. Are they ISOs or NSOs? What's that strike price? How long do you have to act if you leave the company? This isn't small print, folks, especially that first one, ISO versus NSO. They sound similar, but believe me, they have completely different tax implications, which we're going to get into in a bit. Knowing this stuff on day one is just fundamental.
Okay, another really important distinction. Common stock versus preferred stock. You, as an employee, almost always get common stock. The investors, they get preferred. And here's the kicker. Preferred stock comes with something called a liquidation preference. That's a fancy way of saying if the company gets sold, the investors get paid back first before you see a dime. It's so important to realize this from the get-go. It means your shares carry more risk than the ones the VCs are holding.
All right, section 2. Let's talk about vesting. Because, you don't just get all your options handed to you on your first day. You got to earn them. So what is vesting? It's really just the process of gaining full ownership of your options over time. It's basically the company's way of saying, hey, we want you to stick with us for the long haul. It's a way to reward you for your loyalty and your hard work as the company grows.
Now, you're almost guaranteed to see this schedule. It's the industry standard, a 4-year vesting period with a 1-year cliff. So what does that mean? Well, for the entire first year, you get nothing. Zip. Nada. But then, on your 1-year work anniversary, boom. A quarter of your options vest all at once. After that, it's a slow and steady drip, with a little bit more vesting every single month for the next 3 years. The crucial thing to remember here, that 1-year cliff. If you leave on day 364, you walk away with absolutely nothing. You have to make it to that 1-year mark.
Okay, so you've made it past your cliff, your options are starting to pile up. Now comes the big decision point. It's time to think about exercising your options, which is just the official term for, actually buying the shares you've earned the right to.
The process itself seems pretty simple on the surface. Step 1, make sure your options are actually vested. Check. Step 2, decide if now is the right time to pull the trigger, based on the company's value, your own bank account, and the tax hit. Step 3, figure out how you're going to pay for it all. And finally, step 4. You do it. You execute the purchase. This is that magic moment where your option to buy turns into you being an actual shareholder.
So how do you actually pay for these shares? Well, you've basically got 3 main strategies, and each one fits a different scenario. First, there's exercise and hold. This is for the true believers who have the cash on hand to buy the shares and are willing to wait for a bigger payout. Then there's exercise and sell to cover. This is perfect if you believe in the company but don't have a pile of cash lying around. You immediately sell just enough shares to cover the cost and the taxes. And finally, exercise and sell. This is the take the money and run option. You sell everything right away, get your cash, and eliminate all the risk. Just know that the path you choose here has huge financial and tax consequences. And that brings us to the part nobody loves talking about, taxes. Honestly, this can be the biggest, scariest dragon you have to slay on this whole journey. If you ignore the tax implications, you could get hit with a bill that is shockingly, painfully large. Trust me, you don't want that surprise.
Remember when we talked about ISOs versus NSOs? Well, this is where it really matters. With an NSO, a non-qualified stock option, the second you exercise, you owe ordinary income tax. It's taxed just like your salary on that paper gain, the spread between what the stock is worth and your cheap strike price.
Now, with an ISO, an incentive stock option, you usually get to dodge that immediate tax bill. But, and this is a huge but, it can wake up that dragon we were just talking about.
And that dragon's name is the Alternative Minimum Tax, or AMT. It's this whole separate parallel tax system. And for ISOs, the paper gain you make when you exercise can trigger a gigantic AMT bill. This is probably the biggest trap in the entire stock option world. I want you to really picture this. You could get a tax bill for thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars that you have to pay in real cash on money you haven't actually received because you haven't sold any stock. It's a brutal surprise if you're not ready for it.
Just look at how massive the difference can be. This example shows what can happen. The ISO holder on the left pays nothing in taxes when they exercise, and then pays a lower long-term capital gains tax when they finally sell. But the NSO holder on the right, they get hit with a big income tax bill right away. The bottom line in this scenario, the person with ISOs ends up with roughly 14% more cash in their pocket. So yeah, understanding these tax rules isn't just a tiny detail, it's a huge deal that can seriously change how much you make.
Okay, we're almost there. We're in the home stretch. You've made it through the grant, the vesting, the exercising, and the taxes. So what's left? The final piece of the puzzle is selling. It's all about knowing when to cash in and, just as important, when to diversify your wealth.
Look, it's so easy to fall in love with your company's stock. Of course it is. You're pouring your heart and soul into building the company. But putting all your eggs in that one basket is a massive financial risk. We've all heard the horror stories like Enron, where employees lost their life savings overnight. And think about the worst-case scenario. If the company hits a rough patch, you could lose your job and watch your net worth plummet at the exact same time. That's a double whammy you want to avoid at all costs. So what's a good way to think about this? Well, a pretty common rule of thumb from financial advisors is to try and keep no more than 10% of your entire net worth tied up in any single stock. Remember, the game isn't just about building wealth, it's also about protecting it. And diversification, that's your #1 tool for protecting your financial future.
I want to leave you with this last thought from SecFi, because I think it sums everything up perfectly. No one can foresee the future, but usually the worst choice is not making any choice at all. Doing nothing with your stock options, that is a choice. And honestly, it's often the most costly one you can make. The real key to unlocking all that potential value is to be proactive, to learn this stuff, and to make a plan. So the only question left is, what's your plan?